Hi, and welcome to another edition of the Trustcast Show. And we're really happy to have with us Maz Hedayat. Did I get the last name right?
You got it right, my friend.
Okay, welcome to the show.
Good to be here.
So, today's guest earned an MBA in finance, built a 6-year title insurance company from scratch, and now has won over 300 commercial trials. That's a lot, all while quietly turning artificial intelligence into his firm's competitive weapon before most lawyers knew what to do with it. Maz, take me back to 1999. You got invited to ABA's technology task force and then
Right.
launched a lawyer focused internet startup. What was it and what happened to it?
All right. So yeah, I graduated law school in 1995. What's interesting about that year is that's the year the internet got sort of a makeover, courtesy of a fellow from England named Tim Berners-Lee, Sir Tim Berners-Lee, and he gave us what's now the World Wide Web. Before that, the internet was essentially text messages, which at the time was amazing that a guy from, California could talk to a guy from Hong Kong. Anyway, but in 1995, the World Wide Web kind of blossomed, uh, and I became a lawyer. And like you said, in about 1999, I think it might have been sooner. I think it might have been more like 1997. But what happened was I've always been interested in technology. I had always been kind of in and around technical stuff, even though I'm not a programmer, I'm not a computer technician, I'm a lawyer. I just have an interest in it. And I guess lucky for me, um, a lot of things were happening back then. The legal profession was just beginning to kind of scratch its head and say, well, what's going on here? Could it affect us? And so you're right. I got invited to an ABA task force, and that was very interesting, if nothing else, to see how many other lawyers were becoming aware of this. We're still a very small group, obviously, but you make connections, you meet people, and I kept abreast of those people. Um, and it was about 1998 and 99. Um, the fever was out there, Netscape and Yahoo and people, back then it was kind of the Wild West. This was .com one, as they say. The first time around, you could take, a bowl of fruit.com
Yeah.
and it was a business. Okay, so this was the .com era. And like like anyone, I probably overestimated myself, and I said, you know what we need? We need a way for lawyers to find information and communicate with each other. I should mention around this time, um, I was uh, I was always showing up at these technology related events, and one thing you saw a lot back then was the creation of what we call portals, right? And in particular, a portal for a certain type of person. So a vertical, as they call it, vertical portal. So there was the standard portal is Yahoo. I mean, everybody saw it. Everybody knows what it looks like. Um, for lawyers, the standard portal was a site called oh my gosh, Westlaw. Um, Westlaw purchased them. Anyway, so FindLaw. It's called FindLaw, and the founders are going to kill me because I know them personally. And anyway, that should have come to mind right away. But here we go. So FindLaw is out there for lawyers, and I said, wait a minute, this cannot be the best we can do. We have got to be able to do, because FindLaw was essentially, and again, at the time, this is what was going around. Um, you know, uh, Craigslist. Everybody knows
Yeah,
Craigslist,
directory
right?
with
That's all it
ads.
was, a directory. And FindLaw was little more than a directory. They eventually shaped up into something else, but basically it was a bunch of links on a single page. And I
Yep.
said, We can do better than that. I mean, lawyers have much more to offer and much more going on." So um, I got some investment. I went to a local programmer. We built a relationship. He was also a client of mine. So anyway, one way or another, he helped me build out this website called, get ready for a terrific job of naming, eLaw Central.
eLaw Central.
eLaw Central. Why would I call it that? I tell you why. Because every other decent name was taken by them. This was .com 1. It was a feeding frenzy. I would have preferred something like iLaw or eLaw or whatever. Anyway, so I had to do that. But that came with a whole set of tasks. If you're going to try to build a company from scratch, you have to go beyond your basic investment. You have to go out and solicit more investment. You have to raise the profile of the company. And the American Bar Association has an annual event where you can do just that. You can show up in front of a bunch of lawyers and tell them about your product.
Yeah.
And yep, so that's the ABA Tech Show. I did that. Mind you, during this whole time, you got to make a living. So you're practicing law. It was a bit of a juggling act.
Yep.
So we did, and we got a good reception. So good that a company based in Florida, again, it's a bunch of lawyers.
Yeah.
They got together. They built this little company, and they invited me down to talk with me. And by the time I left, a couple of days later, they said, "Okay, we'll get in touch with you. We're going to issue over-the-counter stock. The pink sheet, it's called. Basically, the penny stocks.
Right.
Okay, we're going to start that way. And we're going to generate enough revenue from the initial public offering that we're going to buy your company, and so on." Funny thing, a week after I came back, the newspapers basically said, "Yeah, the dot-com boom is over." Wait, I was like, "Wait, I didn't get my ride." Yeah,
It's not over yet.
not over for me, but it
I need
was.
an extension.
Yeah, believe me, just I won't get into too much detail because I don't want to see a grown man cry when you find out how many serious opportunities I was either too early or too late.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's how it got started. And I just maintained that interest in all things technological because, again, uh, this was me only a few years out of law school. If you're an older lawyer, and it's not because older lawyers didn't get it, or although they didn't, but if you're an older, more established lawyer, you didn't feel the same pressure to adopt a new technology. And just to date myself, just to let all your watchers know that I'm a dinosaur. Back then, the technology that broke lawyers was email. Yes, lawyers were terrified. Email is too public. I mean, whatever. They let their imaginations run away with them. I had a judge tell me once it's true. I had a judge tell me, is that a hyperlink in your pleading, in your memorandum?" I said, "Yeah, yes, Judge, it is." She said, "You absolutely get that off. That is a security risk." What are you talking about?
But
Yeah,
nobody
she
knew
didn't know.
back then. So hang on just a second. I'm going to stop here for a second because I don't have on my echo cancellation, and sometimes I will end up with my video editor swearing me out for doing that. So I'm going to stop it, and then I'm going to turn it on, and I'll start back up.
All right.
So you're finished off with the story about your escapade into the internet, and you're being too late and too early, and both at the same time.
It sounds like a contradiction, but believe me, you can be too late and too early at the same time. So fast forward to, and of course, eventually you have to decide. You have one foot in the technology world and one foot in the legal world. Which one are you going to be serious about? And I really thought about just hanging up my shingle or my license and saying, "Okay, I want to do technology full time." It's funny, it was actually my father who said, "Yeah, you know what? Maybe don't do that. You went to law school, you did all this stuff," and that turned out to be the right advice at the time.
Yep.
And,
Yep.
because it's volatile. You had a
It
market,
is
you
volatile.
don't have a market, and the parallel is if someone wanted to start a company today, and of course I know a lot of entrepreneurs, so they're doing things related to AI. Brother, I tell you, AI changes it's not an exaggeration to say it changes by the day. By the day. A market that exists on Monday may not exist on Friday. Um, so that's that's always part of the deal. Volatility is always part of the deal. Um, I'm glad I
So
found like-minded lawyers, and I'm glad I could generate an actual competitive advantage, something practical, something I could point to and say, if you're willing to work with the internet, if you're willing to open your mind to technology, you'll get something out of it. It's really worthwhile. And so for good, but so like I said though, I decided not to step totally into the technology world. I decided to go back to practicing law and practicing law with some enhancements. And I definitely remember at least. Oh, and I also did a lot of public speaking and writing, articles and books and stuff. And at one point, I was in front of just a group of very well established lawyers in a county bar association, kind of environment. And I remember giving them a very basic talk about this stuff. Let me tell you, there were 300 guys there, and they were mostly guys, blank, nothing going on. They're like, "What are you talking about?" Well, again, fast forward and things are different. If someone wanted to start a company today, and they are, like I said, if AI is a part of their mix, that's a very volatile market. It's as crazy.
mhm.
AI is arguably more crazy today than things were back in .com. So I don't know. I guess uh, they say those who can't do teach, and in my case, I think it's those who are in the market a little late or a little early end up writing about it. And that's what I did. I ended up, like I say, writing articles about it, and essentially being a reporter in addition to my day job as a lawyer. And
So, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about your day job as a lawyer, and find out about what you do. So you're primarily in a commercial litigator. What does that mean?
um, okay, I can tell you exactly what it means. Everybody knows what a divorce is. Commercial litigation usually surrounds a business divorce.
Okay.
That's what I call it. Um, it's either, and this comes in all kinds of flavors. One of the most common scenarios that leads to commercial litigation, and by the way, by definition, what are we talking about? Litigation. It's the same thing. Personal injury lawyer does same thing. A med mal lawyer does, but this time it's between companies, and the damages are essentially commercial damages. Um, And what you find is it's not surprising in that scenario to find the same kind of emotions you would find in a divorce. What do I mean?
Hmm.
He did me wrong. They did me wrong. I deserve this. I deserve. I mean, it's like divorce. Um, and it turns out, I mean, for good or ill, I had kind of a knack for it. I understood where these people were coming from, no matter which side they were on. And And being a litigator and working in court, of course, it's all about communication, how you write, how you speak, how aggressive you are, and that happened to be my thing. And so I've inspired confidence in people. It also helps that I published on the subject and so on. Honestly, though, I can, and I've been doing so now. Fast forward, I've been doing this for more than 30 years. I wish I could tell you as I sit here that I've kind of finally made up my mind that I'm a lawyer and technology is no longer important, or the other way around. I'm still on the fence. I'm still doing both. I was on the state bar select committee for AI in the practice of law. You wouldn't believe how many people contact me just because I was on the committee. Well, I was also the secretary of the committee, but the point is, it's still a fascination to people. People still don't know what to make of it. But uh, the fact is, I guess maybe because I've been in it for so long, when AI came along, it made perfect sense to me. I incorporated it into my practice immediately, and it's still part of my practice. It's still part of the ecosystem of applications I use. In fact, I just submitted an article on that subject to the State Bar Association. It's what I call my tech stack, right? That's the term that's used. Um,
What is
not
your
really-
tech stack?
my tech stack involves uh, first of all, my office uses Google Apps, Google Works.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the commercial version of Google. Everyone knows how to use Google. Not a lot of training necessary. Well, this is the commercial, high security version. And Google is a very innovative company. So
Yep.
they come up with a lot of great things that you can use. Everything takes a little adaptation because it's not necessarily made just for lawyers, but it's it's easy to work with, whether you're at your computer or your mobile. Um, Everything is infinitely customizable. It's a good deal. So Google Works is the sort of the backbone. Uh, the next part of my tech stack is Clio. And I don't. Are you familiar with that application?
Yep.
Yeah. So
Yep.
Clio, I believe, is the foremost online practice management software.
Yes. Yep. It
Um,
is.
and in 2008, they got started by displaying at the ABA Technology Show, and I was there. So me and the Clio guys, I helped them store their the stuff that they use to set up at the ABA Tech Show. So anyway, we were tight. They were good guys. And so the next part of my tech stack is in fact Clio. And honestly, I'm impressed. I mean, Clio was doing well to begin with, but as time went on, they didn't just bank their money or, I don't know, use it for vanity projects. They've been consistently improving what they do. So I use Clio Manage, which back in the day there was only Clio. You didn't call it Manage or this or that. But so Clio Manage, which is a repository for all my information. It's my single source. It's my source of truth. Okay, you got to have a source of truth in the office. Where can you go to find the information so you don't have to go to a dozen other places? Okay, and for us, that's Clio. Then Clio added a CRM module. In other words, getting people in the door, talking to prospects, and so on. I use that too. And most recently, Clio made a huge acquisition, which added the AI engine Victor to their stable, and they call that product Clio Work. So those are the basic Clio items I use. I use Clio Grow, the intake, Clio Manage, which is the sort of central repository, and Clio Work kind of it adds intelligence and AI to the process. So if you're working with Google Apps, and of course you're using a browser, the browser became the new desktop. You know, everything you did eventually you're doing it in a browser. So I haven't used the Google browser too because it's Chrome, which is very good. I really haven't found anything yet that's actually measurably better than Chrome. So you're working with Google products. You've got uh, Clio products to do serious work because uh, encryption, things like that. Um, Now, I've always, the Clio guys know me from the beginning. As a matter of fact, they recently published a list of the people who were there from day one, and yeah, I'm on the list. So, but although we worked together for a long time, I'm not a pushover. So even though they're friends of mine, I said, guys, this aspect of your product is disappointing to me, and specifically, I always wanted something more agile, an application where it's how can I put it? If you put information in one place, you could put it in several other places as well, and these parts of the software would talk to each other. Essentially, that's the best way to put it. Um, and it can change on the fly, things like that. Clio again is a little more mechanical than that. Just fine. It's stable. It is what it is. But for the overall experience, and especially AI enhanced experience, I use an application called ClickUp. ClickUp.
Yep. I know who
So
they are.
yeah, you know who they are, right?
So, yeah. So I want to change gears a little bit and talk about your practice and about what you or how you help your clients. Um, and so let me pose some questions about disputes and things that you're actually handling. So if my business partner just stopped their job and is draining the company account,
Mhm.
what's the first thing I should do today?
Honestly, you should call an official meeting. I mean, it's one thing for partners to talk, but uh, especially if whatever your company is, however it's organized, it pays to keep a record. Especially if your company is a corporation. A lot of people basically don't appreciate what corporations really are. Corporations are paper driven. They are driven by their records. So, and of course, I've had so many clients, too many to count, who said, "Yeah, this guy and I were the shareholders in a corporation." I said, "Okay, let me see a certificate of your shares." Oh, we don't have that. All right, well, let me see your annual reports. No, we don't do that. And on it goes. So at the end of the day, you can call yourself a corporation, but if you don't behave the way you're supposed to, someone could easily come by and just kind of topple you and say, you know what? You're not really a corporation. Why does that matter? Because if you have a business entity sort of protecting you, whether it's a corporation or limited liability company or, what have you, if you do business in the name of that company, then that company takes the hit. Actually, that's true tax wise, and it's also true in terms of liability.
Hmm.
But if you have one of these companies and you don't do the things that you're supposed to do, pretty soon it looks like you're not really a corporation. You're just Zane doing business
Yep.
as whatever. So back to your question, if the person you work with is not carrying their weight, whether you're in a corporation or some other kind of organization like a limited liability company or partnership, the first thing to do is take action within the company. You got to call a meeting, which means I know this is all going to sound kind of ridiculous because it's just two guys talking, but you got to put something on in writing and say, look, this is when I want to meet you. I want you to think about this, this, and this, and we'll talk about it at the meeting. Now, you do that. If the guy doesn't show up, right away, you're beginning to understand where you stand. He's
Hmm.
not taking you seriously. He's not taking this enterprise seriously as a
Right.
business separate from himself. That means what he's doing isn't necessarily going to benefit Zane at all or the company. Eventually, you find out that all he's doing is benefiting himself. So the answer to your question is you call that meeting, you document the fact that he either didn't show up to the meeting or when you're in the meeting, whatever, he was talking some nonsense, and you have to tell him. Okay, the next step is I have to get a third party involved, uh, a third party with authority. In other words, you got to go to court. Among the many things that judges do, one of the most important is being that neutral party and saying, you know what, this guy's doing all the work, but he makes the same money as this guy who's doing nothing. And the judge will say, yeah, no. Either we have to take that company apart, everybody takes their stuff and goes home, again, like a divorce,
Hmm.
or some other arrangement that forces one party or another to kind of back away. So if you feel you're not being treated well by someone internal to the company, whether it's a partner or shareholder, what have you, document it, confront them, and put everything in writing. Uh, but that's not most of what we do. Most of what we do is company A. In fact, I'll give you an example I have right now. I have a national seafood company. They
Hmm.
import seafood from Asia and they source it to other parts of the country. Uh, and when you're getting seafood from from the East Coast to the West Coast, in the middle, you got to have warehouses. Okay. So you go to this refrigerated warehouse, the truck picks it up, takes it to the next one. Well, uh, sometimes the warehouse company, they, they mess up sometimes. Sometimes they lose your stuff. Sometimes it's more than just losing your stuff. Sometimes they decide, well, this depositor really pays us better. So I think your stuff fell off the truck or whatever. It ended up in the landfill. That
Yep.
happens. Okay. So these are grown people who and this wait, you're not gonna believe this, but this is what amazing. These are
These are
grown
grown.
people dealing with millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars, hundreds of millions. And sometimes they behave like high school kids. Sometimes. I just don't like him. Okay. And lawyers got to come in there and I can tell you, I I'm I'm pretty confident of this. After all this time, I really know how I relate to my clients and the best way to relate to them. And that is, I usually have to be sort of the bearer of bad news. I have to be the realistic one. Um, I have some clients who come to me, usually after dealing with another lawyer. Okay, a lot of my clients have had lawyers in the past, and I can't quite believe this, but apparently their first lawyer did not tell them that their claim is weak. Um,
Hmm.
whatever. I'm not gonna jump on that, but yeah. I mean, if you're a lawyer, I think your first job is to be straight with your client.
It
Now,
seems to me that that's a great observation because otherwise your client is going to spend a buttload of money pursuing something that's not going to really probably has a very low likelihood of getting a return. So you're actually doing them a service.
absolutely. Now, I assure you, that's not how they see it at the time, but it's literally how I feel. And again, you get older, you figure some things out. Here's what I figured out. I know how to do this. Someone may say, "No, you're no good." Okay, you can say that. I know how to do this. I know how to win cases. I know how to, present evidence. I know how to litigate. So a large part of the job ends up being the teacher or the psychologist or just the mean uncle, whatever you want to call it. A lot of my job involves, first of all, we do our homework. That's point one. And again, if you're a lawyer and you don't do things this way, then I kind of wonder what's going on. First thing you got to do is you do your homework, so you know the facts and you know the law, and you say, okay, this is what's realistic. This is what a judge will agree with.
Mhm.
Doing this is what a judge will say yes is good. If the client has never been told that by their attorney, they may have spent tens of thousands of dollars with no results. I have clients in that position. They come to me and they've spent quite a bit of money with nothing to show for it. This is one of the reasons people sometimes say, they're damn lawyers, they don't do anything. Well, not really. Good lawyers shouldn't do that. Good lawyers should tell you the truth. And then you, as an adult, you decide. And that's, it sounds like a very small thing, but it's probably the most important thing I've learned uh, in my career is that you do the homework, you make a case essentially to your client, and you say you should do this, and here's why. And your client doesn't listen. I'm not your mommy. I'm not your daddy. If you don't want to take my advice, you don't have to. That's if you want me to go a different way, I will, as long as it's ethical and so on. But
So
let me ask you this: you're paying me quite a bit. Wouldn't you follow my advice? Isn't that what you paid for? So, but if you don't want to, you don't want to. But if you look at it that way, actually, that makes for better clients.
Mhm.
And also, as a lawyer, uh, it pays to be a little picky. When you're young, of course, it's very hard. Easier said
Right.
than done. You're in a position, especially like I was self-employed. Um, of course, I only want. I mean, it's great to have good cases, but even if it's not a great case, you have to make a living. Um, so that's basically the three-ring circus that is my life.
So if some other firm is threatening to sue my business, at what point do I stop handling it myself and pick up the phone and call an attorney?
My answer is immediately. Here's what I mean by that. Um, no matter how competent, I have clients who are absolutely competent, very intelligent. I mean, I couldn't do what they do. But know your lane. Good man's got to know his limitations. Okay. One of the things that my office does is we act as corporate counsel, like a lot of lawyers. We act as, in other words, whatever comes up, even if it's a customer who's running his mouth or an opponent, another player in the marketplace who you think is cheating, you you should have a lawyer on speed dial. Say, hey, Maz, you're my corporate counsel. This guy did this. What can I do about it? And believe it or not, if you get a lawyer involved early, and if the lawyer like you is involved in making deals rather than just, you know, by the way, just because you have a hammer doesn't mean everything is a nail, right? Okay. You don't have to go rushing into court every time there's a disagreement. And having a lawyer or somebody to sort of counsel you and say, listen, this is probably going to cost you about 30 grand. And I don't even know if it's a guaranteed winner. Look, what I just told you is valuable. You can still say, no, I want you to go, go, go. Sure, I will. But I told you what the odds are, and I told you the kind of money you're going to spend. That means you can make a better decision. That means your company will do better because you're making decisions from reason, from facts, instead of just from emotion. And actually, in that article, I just turned into the ISBA, State Bar Association. Um, I really came to the conclusion that the primary difference between the way I practice and other people practice is everything about my practice is data driven. Okay, the kind of clients you talk to, the kind of places you go, kind of courts, it's all data driven. You take out the guesswork, do your homework. Again, tell your clients what they can look forward to. This is going to happen. This is going to happen. And eventually, that's a very valuable person, a person who can tell you with some degree of, confidence, this is going to happen and that's going to happen. Sometimes you feel downright like a fortune teller. Sometimes. Because a lot of times I make a call. I'm like, okay, this is going to happen. Watch this. Ah, he did it. And I think that's what contributes to eventually clients saying, all right, this guy knows what's going on. I think I'm going to keep him around. And that's where we find ourselves now. I don't listen. I can tell you, I shouldn't be proud of this, but I spend most of my time saying no to prospective clients. I that 90% of the people who approach me, I don't represent them because it takes a couple of different elements to be a good client. It's another thing. You get to a certain point in your career, and thankfully, you can begin to limit yourself to the good clients. You're not a bus. You're not public transportation. You don't have to take every rider. You're more like a taxi or a private car. You
How do
decide.
you get your new your passengers? Do you do marketing still, or is most of what you'd get is from references, word of mouth?
Yeah, that's a good question. Um, okay, since whatever, since I started, um, look, remember this: if you're a lawyer, you shouldn't be a salesperson, or at least you shouldn't let sales drive you. Okay, your interest should be doing the right thing, not necessarily, telling everybody who comes to you, "Hey, can you do that?" You bet we can. You bet we can. No, be as honest with them as you're going to need to be with your clients. Okay, your case is weak here, here, and here. I'll still take your case because I work hourly. Okay, if you want to pay your lawyer to get answers for you, which is perfectly legitimate, I'll do it. But after a while, you, the client, are going to say, "Yeah, this seems to be costing a lot. Hey, Maz, why am I paying so much money?" Well, because I told you this wasn't going to work. Remember? Look at the memo I gave you. and you said, damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. So, part of doing well with clients, part of doing well in court is picking the right clients. And the more established you are, the more, I won't lie to you. When you start out, no matter who you are, when you start out, you're still nobody to clients. The advantage of working in a mid-size or large law firm is the brand of that law firm precedes you. Okay, you don't need to tell the client, "Hey, I'm really good at what I do." They're like, "No, I know this law firm. The people who work here are solid. I'm going to assume you're solid." That's important. But at the end of the day, those aren't your clients. Those are the firm's clients. I decided I wanted to be the source. I wanted to be the one that the clients were loyal to, and so on. And it happened a number of times. And some of my clients were actually kind of high profile people. They had a lot of money, they had a lot of influence. And then the word gets around. Very simple. This guy did something for me. If you got a problem, you might want to call him, and so on. But when you're starting out, it's, the sky's the limit. You got to do everything. You got to go to every client facing event. You got to speak. You got to write. You got to hang out with other lawyers. You got to do everything. And of course, with the advent of the internet, you can put up an ad on the internet. And in the beginning, and again, this is a long time ago, but in the beginning, if you had a presence online and you would show up in a Google search and so on, people were just getting used to that. So the fact that part of the reason you showed up is because you were out, you were there. You know, I 90% of life is showing up. So they would find you because you're out there, and you would help that process along. Uh, Internet marketing is primarily search engine optimization, SEO. There's also search engine marketing, SEM. But anyway, the point is, the goal of internet marketing is to get known as an expert in XYZ, but also to be there. So when someone is going to I don't know, they're going to a website to look up something that, let's say divorce. They're looking up a divorce topic, divorce article online. If you're a divorce lawyer, it'd be great if a little, placard showed up in the corner, got divorce questions, this guy can answer them. That's the internet. Okay. In the old days, no matter who you were, no matter how good you were an ad, maybe in a bar association publication. So you weren't going out and finding the people who needed your services. You had to wait for chance, literally sheer luck, that here's the lawyer who does this and that. Eventually, you realize the successful relationships, client relationships, are ones in which the client self-selects. Okay? I don't have to go out and say, "Hey, litigation, you know what I mean? You need litigation." You don't do that. The client finds you. Again, you're doing your marketing and so on. And yes, because I've been doing this for so long, um, not so much. But I still have a digital marketing agency. I still have a very expensive website that does a good job for me. You should never turn your back on growing your presence online, I hate to use the word brand. Like I said, I'm not selling Big Macs, but yeah, people should know that you're out there and that you can do the job. No matter how long you've been around, you can never totally turn your back on that. So I still do it, but when you get to a certain point, you get to do it more regularly, more reliably. I have people advising me the same way I advise my clients. I have people I trust, and they could tell me, "Yeah, you need to spend, 50 grand a month." But they don't. They say, "Listen, this is what works. If you want to go this way, this is what it's going to cost you. Let's give it a shot." And after that, it's all cooperative, right? Let me ask you something. How do people get to know who Zane Myers is? How did that happen?
So actually, probably more through this podcast than anywhere else.
There you go.
It's self promotion. Although I don't make money on the podcast, I'm not a Joe Rogan, but I do get a lot of play, and people find out about me, um, in fact, I've never mentioned this on the podcast before, but I do short form video for professionals, attorneys, lawyers, doctors, even various types of companies, um, scientific firms. But I do short form video, and so I meet and talk to my ideal customers
But
on
that's another
the
thing.
podcast.
That's another thing. Um, because we're not selling Big Macs, sometimes, all right, sometimes the pitch isn't a pitch. Okay, what gets people interested in you has nothing. You're not saying, "Hey, this is Zane." You're there to deliver a serious message to a serious group. Uh, Hopefully, respect follows, and people say, the reason I want to do this with Zane is because I saw him do this, and I was really impressed. And that's a lot of it. The reason you won't find a lot of young lawyers talking like that, and I don't blame them a bit. It takes so long.
It doesn't snap them with a snap, does it?
It takes a long time to capture someone's confidences. They don't do it like that. So you try to win your cases. You try to settle where you need to settle. You try to pick the right clients so they don't. Although I've found that no matter how hard I try, it is almost always true. At some point, the client's going to cry uncle. At some point, they're going to say, "Look, could you just stop billing me?" And I'm like, "Well, you told me you want to do this. You told me you want to get at your opponent who is this big and you're this big. Yeah, this is how it works." That is, I mean, again, that's something that probably younger lawyers don't look at, but uh,
So you've been to trial over 300 times. What's the most memorable thing a judge has ever said to you in a courtroom?
get the hell out of here. No, I've seen everything. I've seen everything. Some judges you get along with them. You just they kind of they get you. Um, and but if I win a case, hopefully, and I think I'm confident of this. If I win a case, it's because I'm right. Like literally, I'm right. I've kind of thought about the parties and the equities, and I'm like, yeah, this is the right way. You're good when you and the judge think roughly alike. That's when you're good. That's when you win. Okay. It's not because I think this is what should happen. It's not because you think it's because this I've been in front of this judge many times. This is what he or she thinks should happen. If you're a good lawyer, you're a bit of a mind reader. Um, and that's how you help your clients. This judge is going to do this. Let's anticipate it now and let's treat it this way.
Can you shop for judges?
What's that?
Can you shop for judges?
You uh you can, but to some extent it's just the luck of the draw. Because that's how these and I'm talking about mostly state courts. Okay?
Right.
State court, but also the federal court. The bottom line is they have so many judges, and when cases come in, it's a round robin system. Period. It's your turn, it's your turn, it's your turn. Okay? The trick is you gotta say, oh, it's this guy. I know how this guy operates. The law always allows you to change judges at least once if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever. Judges, it doesn't hurt their feelings. If you think that's appropriate, you can try to do it. I didn't. I've really never done it that way. And actually, neither have most of my opponents. So that whole thing about whatever sort of judge shopping or venue shopping or so on, I didn't do it. So, um, and if you go to the same, this is inevitable. But wherever it is you get your groceries, if you've been getting your groceries there for 30 years, eventually they'll say, "Oh, that's Zane. He's coming in to buy groceries." They anticipate you. They treat you well. I've been to courts all over the state of Illinois. from Northern Illinois to Southern Illinois, Central Illinois, Normal Illinois. I've been all over the place. And it's always, to me, it's always interesting going someplace new and finding something new. But the guys who really know me, they're, in and around my county. I'm in one of the suburban counties uh, around Chicago. And those are the guys who really know you. And so that's ideally, it turns out that's where you want to stick around. It, nobody taught me that. I had to find out by painful experience that you go where you're liked and you go where people will let you do a good job. Because if you're running uphill, that's going to be a tough slog.
So if someone's watching this and they say, "Oh, that Maz or Maz, is it Maz or Maz?"
You can call me Maz or Maz. I mean, I say Maz, but I have Canadian friends, the Clio guys, for instance. They call me Maz. Whatever.
So if they're listening, they say that Maz sounds like he's somebody I'd like to work with. I have a legal issue, commercial nature, or real estate. How would they get in touch with you?
I'm pretty accessible. And frankly, if you simply put my name into a search engine, uh, so you can say Maz and the last name is Hedayat, you'll find me. I'm out there. I'm around. Then you as a prospective client, you're gonna do your homework. You say, okay, is he a practicing lawyer? Do other lawyers have anything bad to say about him, et cetera, et cetera? And that's the beginning of your opportunity to establish yourself, to prove that you're worth it. But if someone, and I mean this, my wife can testify to this. I actually like doing this stuff. I mean, commercial problems or whatever brain teasers like that. I actually find it interesting. I can do it in my sleep, but it's really interesting. And that, by the
Well,
way,
that'll make you better at it, doesn't it?
yeah,
If you enjoy something,
it
you're always
helps.
better at it if you
It
enjoy it.
helps. And it helps. Um, I don't want to embarrass my son, but my son is a computer engineer, right? He
Yep.
works in AI. My point is, he did that before he got a job doing that. What he does for a job, and he's great at it, was his hobby. And I honestly, I can't think of anything better than that. That what you do for fun is also what you do for a living. You get practice all the time. And I think that's what makes you good at it. There was a book written by Malcolm Gladwell, must be 20, 30 years ago. No, 20 years ago, called 10,000 Hours.
Mhm.
10,000 work hours is about 5 years. And the idea was, it takes about 10,000 hours, more or less, to feel comfortable in the field. I can testify to that. I can tell you right now, the first 5 years of my practice, I was terrified. I had never done any of it. What is this judge going to do? What is he or she going to say? How are they going to treat me? How's my opponent going to? But there's no way to deal with it but to get the experience. So you have to run headlong into it. Sometimes, you know, you get hurt. Um, but the trick is to keep going, and hopefully you'll learn. Hopefully you learn from what you're doing, and eventually you know what to do. You know you need to take a left turn before you get there, or a right turn, or whatever. But it's all still it's all still evolving. As my friend said, if you're such a good lawyer, why are you still practicing? Don't you have it right yet? But yeah, you're always practicing.
Well, Maz, thanks a lot for coming on the show. And I'm going to wind it up right here, and but stick with me for just a second.
Sure, sure. Okay.